Hello, extra time.
Point to the league not to get a high because it damages your reputation. It makes people, when they read it, just laugh at you.
Simple look, they're playing in the League One and they're playing in the Europa League and they're playing in the game in this country. Maybe we should get Stephen Kenny then to manage the Irish team.
Hello and welcome to the extratime.com podcast. Your host Luke Jordan, Rise of Macdara Ferris, alongside him again. Macdara, how are you?
I'm good, Luke. How are you getting on?
I'm fine. I'm back. Did you miss me?
Did you miss the water going out of the sink the correct way?
I didn't actually notice that. No,
You're going to have to go back to Australia and test it out.
Right, I didn't actually notice that. No, but yeah, I'm back, and we'll chat about the World Cup in due course. But I suppose on this week's podcast we'll be chatting about the European football, the FAI Cup kind of draw, and any shocks. No real shocks. Was there? Pat's probably gone to Brandywell's, probably the biggest one. And also about, I call it, Danny North during the week, so we can hear that later on. But first, let's chat about the World Cup. The final happened. I always thought bits of the game. I was actually busy. Did you see much of the game out there?
Yeah, no, I watched it. I watched any of the games of the weekend. I tended to watch, and I watched the ones that were on over breakfast time. But stuff that was kind of mid morning with the day job, I didn't watch. So yeah, I actually watched the third, fourth place playoff. Watching Michelle O'Neill running the line for that one. She was actually unlucky. I think potentially she might have done the final if England weren't in it. She'd been paired and been working with Welsh referee Cheryl Foster during the World Cup and at different stages. And Foster would have done some WSL games, probably maybe viewed as being too close to England. And so when England got there, that kind of ruled them out. So they got to do the third, fourth place playoff. But actually, I thought it was an American referee who did the final, but I thought she was good.
Yeah, I watched the highlights back. The goal, with the only goal in the final, was a good strike, and I suppose for England to get there with all the injuries they had, I know you get there, you want to win it, but I suppose they probably would have taken a semi-final, final place considering all the injuries coming to the tournament.
Yeah, I think they came in as probably one of the favourites, and if you get all the way to the final and you lose 1-0, I think they were second best on the day. They'll probably have regrets in that they didn't perform on the actual day, but Spain deserved the win, certainly from my point of view. But it was a good final as well.
What do you make of the tournament overall?
I think it was good. It wasn't. There was a bit of discussion that with the expansion of the team, would there be kind of heavy defeats? And there were a few, but there was no absolute hammerings. There were a few upsets. Some of the teams who got beaten by sides maybe they wouldn't expect it. The fact that Germany went out early, haven't actually they had hammered one of the teams, but they subsequently lost the other two. So there weren't too many mismatches. I think the games were good. It was a bit just the nature of where it was in Australia and New Zealand. What annoyed me a little bit was just with the kickoff times shuttled through various times, because the time zone between Australia, there's a different time zones as Australia. The time difference to New Zealand, I don't know what it is. I think it must be 4 hours, maybe different, something like that. You're kind of used to in the World Cup or even in the Euros last year in England that the matches are on at the same time. And you kind of know, but it was suddenly got to the quarterfinal and it was a game like at 2 a.m. or something, So that didn't help as a viewer in the Northern Hemisphere. But thought the productions were really good, and I flicked between watching stuff on Ireland on RTE and stuff on BBC, particularly when Ireland had the commentators out there. But I think when Ireland went home, I think they all came home at that stage. But the coverage is good, and certainly I stuck with RT on Friday. On Sunday, Des Kern was doing the main commentary and Stephanie Zamber was co-commentary, and I think they worked really well together. I did see comments that whoever's doing commentary for the BBC, I think they lost their voice. So, but I thought the coverage in RT was really good because we got the Irish coverage, and then when Ireland were out, it was kind of more wider. Inevitably the big coverage on BBC, and I don't have ITV, is more England focused.
Yeah, I thought from just chatting to people in here when I got back, they thought the coverage for the games was quite good. That there seems to be, I think the media themselves did a good job covering. I think that was kind of an interesting what would the coverage be like with the national media compared to say men's tournament? I actually thought from talking to people and obviously reading online, I thought there was actually decent coverage from better than decent, good coverage actually of the games.
Yeah, like of the Ireland games or the tournament as a whole.
Just the World Cup in general, and the Ireland games in particular. But the World Cup in general, there was a lot of media coverage. In fairness, from on Twitter, newspapers, there was a lot of coverage of the tournament, I thought.
Yeah, I think the timing of the tournament was good as well because it was right in the middle of the break in the Premier League, and even there's a little bit more coverage because the All Ireland finals had been finished at the end of July, and it just allowed a little bit more space for the tournament on just in the newspapers and online.
What's the name of Ireland's performance?
They did better than I thought there was going to be. As we talked about before, and this Ireland team have always done better than probably my expectations. I probably am a little bit more fearful of how they might do. I thought they'd lose all 3 games. I'll be honest. I'm pretty certain I said that before. But they did really well. Australia were slow to get going in the tournament, and they got to the semi-finals, and we probably should have taken something from that game. We maybe should have taken something from the Canada game. I think they were weaker than we thought they were going to be, and they had their own off-field issues. And I thought it was a really good performance against Nigeria, albeit against it was just pity we couldn't get a goal in that one, but we got Katie McCabe's goal. I see it's shortlisted for FIFA's goal of the tournament, which is great. So the only negative comes back to the talk around Vera Pauw, and also that it she didn't really use the squad very fully. I'd say that probably came into some of the feedback from the players. There were certain players who just didn't get a look in it at all, even in the last game. And I'm not saying you just throw players on for the sake of it, but the likes of, there was kind of pretty much a settled 11. It was as we expected. Anya Gorman kind of stepped in. Abby Larkin probably shone a little bit off the bench as well, but didn't get the opportunity to start the last game. But you had the likes of Amber Barrett, who, she didn't even get a kick. I think Lily got 2 substitute appearances. So I'd say some players kind of went out there and kind of wondered, oh yeah, what, you go all the way to the World Cup and they didn't even get to play. But I suppose that's tournament football. But Pauw was kind of slow to get on the substitutions, and that discussion around Katie McCabe as well. And then the mood music around the place now is, the players certainly were given every opportunity to give praise to and back Vera Pauw during the tournament and after the tournament. And I wouldn't describe it as mealy-mouthed, but they very much kind of stuck. I think they were quite professional out at the tournament. I think that's kind of what you have to do. But if you really were in support of the manager, you had that opportunity to do it, and it wouldn't have taken anything away from you. You weren't going to undermine yourself if you wanted to be vocal to the manager, and none of them decided to do that. They pretty much, a straight bat, to use a cricketing parlance, and that was about it. So the review is ongoing at the minute. I think the FAI board are kind of reviewing that. So that's probably the only that's the negative thing. And there was a lot of discussion about it, but that was the story that people, George Hamilton on commentary, he noted it on commentary. It didn't look good at the time, and then of course Vera Pauw was going to be asked about it afterwards. And I watched the press conference in full. I thought the questions were quite fair, and she was the one that volunteered Farrelly's name towards the end of her answer. I saw the description that she kind of threw Farrelly on the bus. Katie McCabe wanted fresh legs on, and so Vera Pauw talked about that, and then as she went on, she talked about Farrelly, and so as people have put 2 and 2 together, that essentially McCabe wanted Farrelly to come off, and you could probably infer that. But Pauw could have been a bit more diplomatic in her answers, and when she doesn't want to answer a question, she's well capable of giving a manager an answer, and she kind of talked herself into a little bit of trouble there, but she'll only say what she wants to say, and she obviously wanted to say that. So that'd be my view. Very much looking on the outside, reading what was online and say watching the press conference, which was available for anyone to watch on YouTube or whatever.
It's very reminiscent of not entirely the same, but similar in terms of the Euro 2012. I thought lose the first two games, draw the dead rubber. Oh, no, sorry, we lost last game in Italy. Didn't we? Last one was the one that we lost against the Italians, or did we draw? Can't remember now.
In 2012
we lost 2012, but in more, we lost that game. But actually, I meant in terms of the manager, like there's talk of the manager's position of the game, the unhappiness of players not getting a game.
But I think
I thought that very similar to that. I thought.
Yeah, but I think what you'd have to say is that the women's team put up a better performance. Were in the matches way more than that 2012 side. So that's the only thing I'd say. Like, yeah, Pau is a conservative coach, and there is a core of very good players. A couple of standout players, as we've talked about before, Denise O'Sullivan, Katie McCabe, obviously. We kind of had to, at the back, they don't have an awful lot of pace. I think Farrelly was very good. She was better than she was the one I kind of wonder, would she have the legs? Would she have the quality? And talking to others, talking to a couple of people who'd been out in America when she played in those two games, is like, no, she is that good. And she was very good. But there's peripheral players around. I thought some of the coverage in Shiva and the media, some of it I thought was a little bit unfair. I think she was weak, but I thought some of it was a little bit over the top. But part of that is you kind of want to pick it up. But what's good is that the core of that team will still be there for the next qualifiers. Yeah, and we've even got the Nations League coming up with a game in Northern Ireland in the Viva Stadium soon as well. So they're not friendly matches. They will be competitive games. We've got to go to Hungary as well soon enough. And I think most of that squad will still be there, because if they were going to retire, they probably would have made the announcements. And a lot of players have kind of moved around. Players have kind of shuttled out of the London City Lionesses and then come in the other way. And there's a bigger cohort now at Birmingham City. Kyra Caruso has gone back to San Diego, which is where she's from as well. But the players will be available, and the hope is that certain players will come through as well.
Yeah, it's interesting about the setup of the team. That's kind of the crux of the matter, really. And I think that's where the complaints party stem. I'd imagine it's that players, the team maybe don't want to be as negative, or this kind of talk of Vera Pell being a negative coach. And just when you're chatting to the fans before the game, after the games in Australia, and that was obviously one of the talking points. You're kind of having a chat with people beside you, and you're like, what do you think of the manager position? And it was very mixed. Like, a lot of people were like very in favour. They were saying, say for example on the positive side, she got us to the tournament. Like, a lot of the people maybe view the team still as quite. We have good players, but a lot of parts of the team could be deemed quite average still in terms of maybe our attacking players, which I might come back to and set my own personal point of view. What others are saying, a very common point was that why are we playing supposedly our best player essentially in the back five, left back, she's not really getting forward. That's kind of an argument that was made too. So it was very mixed talking to people, whether it's in the pub or whether it was outside the stadium or in the ground. My own personal point of view is I don't know the relationship she has with the players. That's obviously a separate issue, and if the relationship isn't good, then that only needs to one way, and that's the manager going. But if it's just purely on stylistic points and the team maybe not playing that well, I would heavily point to that. If we do open up and maybe another manager comes in, for example, starts playing 4-3-3 or whatever the case may be, I really don't see the attacking talent in the team, bar one player that could possibly score. To give balance, I thought Caruso was excellent against Canada in the first half. That was one of the best centre forward performances I've seen in Irish shirt. But I don't see the goals coming there. Like, I don't see goals on the bench. Even at the games, I was saying the only way we're going to score here is Louise Quinn corner kick. If Aoife Manning comes into the team in September, a physical talent, win aerial duels, like, that's where the goals are going to come from. It's not going to come from creative football. Like, you've seen it against Nigeria when we did attack a bit more. Our only shot really came from Kate McCabe in the first minute of the game when a scuff wide. Like, we don't have that talent really to open up, I don't think. Especially with an aging defence too. So that'd be my own point of view. I would definitely keep Vera Pauw. I don't see the need to move her on. I think definitely keep her for another campaign. She deserved that, considering she's the first manager to get us to a competitive tournament. I would say, like I said, it was mixed in Australia talking to the fans, but I'd say more said stay than more said go. Now, again, that's my own personal thoughts. I don't know whether what will happen. I think the fact there's a massive review and the fact that it hasn't been a decision made, I think at least in one way, and that's the manager going. But I would be skeptical personally of moving the manager at this stage.
Yeah, I would think that those who travel out would probably be more favourable to Pau. You've kind of invested the time and the cost in going to support the team. I kind of think back to 2002 in the World Cup, and people who travelled out to Japan were more Mick McCarthy than Roy Keane, because they'd paid the money and took the time off to go and support the team. What would worry me is the lack of the verbal support from the players at the end of the tournament and afterwards. So the likes of some of the players have done media on RTE and have been asked the question as well, and so that's what's my thinking. There are players to come back into the squad, young talented players. So Ellen Malloy, Jesse Stapleton, who's moved from Shelbourne to West Ham, McLaughlin. Like that, there are players to come through. I think Abby Larkin's probably going to be a starter. So so it's not like other tournaments where, on the men's side, where we knew that players were going to retire, and then as soon as the tournament is over, they kind of want to play on. Like, can I ask you about your own experience, like the size of the travelling support out at the games, like the likes of singing or on Naveen at the matches? Like, what was if you think of how vocal were the Ireland fans in Stadium Australia on that opening night, where it was probably difficult? I'd say it was probably very green in Brisbane against Nigeria. A lot of Irish people everywhere. But what was that type of experience for you, Luke?
Well, if I was to start back, the initial travel, I'd never do it again. It was 30 hours, 3 stops. Pretty tired, not gonna lie.
Yeah, you weren't flying business class like the team were.
No, unfortunately not. I went from Dublin, Abu Dhabi, Melbourne, Brisbane, because that was my base for the tournament. That was 30 hours of slog with no sleep, because I don't sleep on planes, so that didn't help. But other than that, then when I recouped, then in terms of the atmosphere, it was interesting, because obviously being around Brisbane to start, there was, I know I do caveat this when I compare the two. Like, I arrived into Brisbane's domestic terminal, and I didn't see much paraphernalia around. I was expecting more due to the World Cup.
Yeah.
When I was walking around the city the first couple of days, so this was say the Monday to Wednesday, because I flew into Sydney the day of the game. There wasn't much around. They were only putting up posters, and they were only putting up kind of signs for the games, and the fan zone was only getting ready. And in my head, I was kind of thinking, should this not been done 2-3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, before people started arriving? That's my own personal thought. But then I came into Sydney, and it was completely different. Like, you arrive in, there was huge signs. There was a big goal, if you can imagine, saying "Come on, the Matildas." A lot of people, fans, taking selfies with the picture, with the kind of the paraphernalia there and everything. So it was a big contrast in the two. You knew once you arrived in Sydney Airport there was something going on. Like, the first thing you see was a fast food chain celebrating the Matildas with a big massive sign. There was Sam Kerr all over the wall on the billboard. So that was a big difference. Match day was great, I have to say. We went to an Irish bar, and it was just literally, I say, 5,000 Irish people there. It was great to chat to people all to come around from around the world. Like, some people came to Singapore, some people were staying in other parts of Australia, other people flew from other regions of the world to get to the match. They had family playing, or they had friends playing, whatever the case be. So it was really real kind of fantastic atmosphere. To back to your question with the game itself and the atmosphere, it was brilliant in terms of it was never quiet. There was always like chants coming from different sections. But my only issue was that I think that if we had have been all together as Irish fans, I think it would have been better.
There was no away section.
That was the only issue I had, that we were all mixed. So like behind the goal was probably the most Irish, where I was probably the most Irish part, and we did try to get a few chants going, but it was very difficult because it was getting lost, and by the time it was kind of reaching the Irish fans, maybe the far corner, the chant would die down. So
Yeah.
I was kind of thinking to myself that, geez, if they had a section that put us the 10,000 say Irish fans in one area, I think it would have been raucous, it would have been brilliant. And we did try, like towards the end of the game, we were trying to suck the ball into the net nearly with a corner kick, like, we were trying our best, like, and it was funny, like some of the family the players were behind the goal, and the players were warming up where we were, and they were shouting over to their families and they were waving over. It was very family kind of orientated support, I think, a lot of it. And a lot of people who were living in the area obviously moved in, or who were living around the area who moved to Australia were there. So that was the only downside of the atmosphere. Other than that was great. I think it was 75,000, brilliant. The Brisbane game was interesting because we were obviously knocked out by then, and I was kind of hoping, watching on TV, God, if we can get a draw here, keep the game alive, that'd be brilliant. Didn't happen, obviously. The game was a bit flatter. There was very little support for Nigeria at the game, which didn't help. Suncorp holds around 50,000. Could be wrong, someone might correct me, but I'm going to estimate between 45 to 50. It was only half full, and they didn't close off sections, which I thought they should have done. I know people have pre-bought tickets, but maybe you can move them down somewhere else and try getting more of an atmosphere. Because beside me it was kind of full, but then to my left then it was quite empty. So I thought they could have done maybe a bit more better there. But again, there was a bit of atmosphere. I think if Ireland had scored, it definitely would have helped, or if we had to create a few more chances. Like at the start of the game was great because Kate and Kay almost scored and we did possession. But there was that long period of game where I'm trying to think back to the game. I can't remember the match. It was very muddled. There was nothing really going on. And towards the end, we had a little bit of a goal. I think a corner kick happened, and a throw in, and a shot that was blocked. But it was very little happened, and I think the fans were nearly nodding off nearly towards the end. That kind of atmosphere was very silent towards the end. Then obviously when the game ended, it was a massive clap, and we all stayed back for the team. And I think they appreciate that. And no one left. Like, everyone clapped the team, and you can see the players were appreciating the fact that we were there, saying thanks for the 3 games. Really, it was great for them, for the country itself, to get to a major tournament, because I think we can all agree it's not going to happen for the men anytime soon. I don't think so. I think getting there for the women was brilliant. And I mean, I think they've every chance to get to, that's probably no conversation down the road, but I think they've every chance to get into a Euros. There's no reason.
Yeah, well, the more difficult the tournament to qualify is the World Cup.
The World Cup, and they got there, and
they had to go through 2 away playoffs to get there. They deservedly finished runners up in the group behind Sweden, and I was kind of hoping Sweden would go on because they'd been in our group, and you're kind of familiar with the players as well. But they did it the hard way. It is easier to qualify for the Euros, and as I was saying earlier on, the squad is there. The squad shouldn't be any weaker than it is now. In fact, it should be getting stronger from here. I
think we'll wrap this up because we want to move on, but I think on the attacking talent, I think you added on the point there about some of the players playing the National League, and I think they are talented. But I went to watch Brazil and France in Brisbane on the Saturday night I was there, and I have to say the game was excellent. The players on the show were excellent, and I was comparing that to some of the games I've watched in the National League, and just thinking to myself that they are talented young girls, and they will become brilliant players coming through, but they need the right coaching. I think Emma Byrne made that point as well about coaching. It's really important, and I think those girls would have to definitely leave the league and go to clubs abroad to get the coaching they need to reach their potential, if that makes sense. And I think, like for Larkin in particular, you can see when she come on, breath of fresh air, talented kid, but needs that extra coach, I think, to really push her on. And I say the same with Malloy, and it's going to be the same with McLaughlin opinion, that if they are going to be the talented players, they're going to need to do what Denise Sullivan did. They're going to need to do what Kate McKay did and leave the league to get that extra coaching to be those players, because we need them really. Because like I said, without repeating myself over and over, at the moment in that team, Barry, you take O'Sullivan and McKay out, there's no real attacking talent in that side. That's me in terms of breaking down the next level. We know now we can beat the likes of Georgia and the likes of Armenia and these nations that are below us. We know we're better than them now, and we set a standard for ourselves. But if we do want to push on to the next level of, look at Sweden in the tournament. We beat Sweden, but yet they went really far in the tournament. So we can compete with these teams, but to be consistently there, we're going to need a better coaching at home, or our players have to go to the WSL or go to America to get that better coach.
I think what players will do is that they'll end up similar to the men in some instances. Is they'll be staying in Ireland to finish their education to get their leaving cert, and then they'll move to the UK. I think probably Jesse Stapleton is an example of that.
Yeah. I think Well, look, I think to end this segment, I think, look, the manager, we can come back to that because the decision we made in the future, and we can talk with the manager in more detail. Actually, we don't want to be harboring that point too much. But as a whole, I thought it was an excellent. Like I genuinely, I said it beforehand, and I think I'm vindicated. There was definitely potential there to get 4 points. They could have made it out of that group. I said it beforehand, and I stand by my point. The Australia game, they should have drew that game. It was a mistake, a moment with a switching off, which caused them there. Canada were there for the take, and first half proved that. And Nigeria again looked dead rubber, but it was something on the line there. You don't know what could happen. There was definitely potential to get out of that group. So overall, I think it's a positive tournament, that they were never outplayed in the matches. Huge positive to get there to begin with. I think most people didn't expect them to get to the World Cup. Let's be honest. I think that's a fantastic achievement to get there regardless. So look, I think it's definitely positive. I think that's kind of, the media coverage was good. So I think, going into the Nations League game, there's no reason to why now, like I mentioned before, and they can't get to Euros.
Yeah, and they're hoping that they'll get a big crowd for the Aviva Stadium game that's coming up in September.
We'll park that there for the time being, because there will be very power chat in the next couple of weeks. But for now, we'll come back to that one. But now we're going to listen to an interview with Danny North earlier on the week, so let's tune in.
And there's kind of a lot of grumbling about maybe we don't have enough Premier League players, but in terms of the Championship,
But what's the point in grumbling about it?
But the step
I can't hold about it, can I? If they're not playing the play, what's the point of me grumbling?
But the step up to international football in the Championship, is it kind of is it easily managed?
Well, I tell you about when we played in 2002. What's the point of me grumbling? We had lads who were all at the bottom of the Premier League, real scrapping away. Kinson, Matty Holland, and I had Gary Breen, who hadn't even got a club. What's the point of me grumbling? So I don't subscribe to that. You just. Whatever it is, whatever I've got, I'll get them together and make the best of them and try and make sure we qualify. Grumbling is not one of the things I do.
You can subscribe to each new episode of the ExtraTime.ie Sportscast on iTunes. Please give a rating or add a comment there to let us know your views.
What's the point of grumbling?
Welcome back to the show. Now it's like to welcome on Danny North. Danny, how are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks, yourself.
Yeah, I'm all good. Just chatting there. You're just in the season just kicked off. Anything for Barton, is it?
Yeah. We're 3 games in the league and out the FA Cup already. So it's been an all right start, to be honest. Yeah, we've won 2, lost 1 in the league. Scored a few goals along the way. We have. So yeah, it's a positive start.
Are you just fully coaching now, or are you player coaching, or what are you doing?
No, still player coaching. The last couple of years, I've not really got involved as much playing wise. But I got married in April, and I lost a bit of weight for it, got fit, and then I've just gone into this pre-season and I've done it all. Joined in, so I'm playing a little bit more hopefully this season. So it's going all right.
What's the balance like between coaching and say playing? Because maybe say for example, if you're criticising the players, suddenly you're on the pitch, so it could be maybe a difficult moment. How do you balance the both?
Yeah, to be honest, as the assistant manager, myself and the manager are a bit like good cop, bad cop. I'd be more positive with the lads, whereas he dishes out the bollockins and whatever a bit more than me. So I don't find it too difficult. Obviously, this is the 3rd year I've been doing it now, so obviously you learn year on year. At the start, it was a bit like having to say something to obviously I played with a lot of the lads as well. Having to say it to him was a bit difficult, but obviously as the years go by, the more experience you get, you understand it, and like I say, you just improve on it year on year.
Was it always something you were interested in as a player, or is it something maybe as you got older you're like, I'd like to have a dabble at coaching, or what was your mindset as a player growing up?
No, to be honest, once I left Shamrock Rovers, obviously I came home injured, had to retire. I went part-time, but I was happy to move away from football completely. I sort of fell into it really. One of my old teammates at Grimsby got the job, Nathan Jarman, and he rang me, just said, "Would you be interested?" And I was like, as a player coach sort of thing, and I just said, "Yeah, why not?" Like I say, I was happy to walk away from football. But yeah, that came about, and to be honest, I'm pleased it has. It sort of reignited my love for football again. I say I love it, to be honest. I really enjoy it. Don't get me wrong; it has its difficult moments when you have difficult spells and whatnot, but you get over it. And like I say, at the end of the day, you realise it's only football. You know, there's more to it than that. So just try and go with a smile on my face and things like that.
Are you able to separate football from life? Because some people maybe say if they lose a game, they struggle with the aspect, and it could ruin the weekend, ruin the week. Like, how do you find yourself? Maybe is it something you got better to get older.
To be honest, yeah. When I played, I asked my wife, I was a nightmare. Like if we lost or if I had a bad game or whatever, I was a nightmare, and it'd ruin weekends. Like not just for me, but for my family as well. And obviously, it's not fair, really. But when it's your life, like your livelihood and everything, that's what it is. But obviously, as I've got older and now I'm the other side of it, you'd say, I can. Don't get me wrong, it annoys me at the time, and I'll be in a bit of a mood, but once I'm home and that, I realise it doesn't affect me as much as it used to. And like my missus will say, I can like it's completely different to what I was when I played. So she's happier.
In terms of Barton themselves, like, and from whereabouts are they in the pyramid structure?
So they're in non-league. They're step 5 in non-league. So it's like tier 9 or tier 10, I think it is. Tier 9, I believe it is, and the whole football pyramid in England. You don't seem a million miles away from like the Conference North and stuff, but then you look at like the infrastructure of clubs compared to ourselves. Like we're good, ours is really good for the level we're at. But if you jumped up a level or two, there's teams paying full-time wages and stuff when realistically we're just a part-time club.
Yeah, that's my next question. So in terms of the players, is the majority of them, say, young lads maybe trying to make their way in the game, or are they lads balancing work and getting money on the side, playing football as well? How's the balance there?
We've got a good mix, to be honest with you. Obviously, over the last couple of years, we've managed to get a bit more experience in with us as well. Lads that have mostly have been at, like, obviously they've been at academy clubs. They maybe had a first year, second year pro, and then they've gone into non-league. And like our club captain, he's my age. He's had a really good career in non-league around, like floating around the conference North and stuff. So he's with us now, and he's a good example for all the younger lads that we've got that have maybe just fell out of academy football or been released from a first year pro, and they're looking to find the way a bit again. And then, like I say, you've got like middle-aged lads, mid-20s that just balance it out with a day-to-day job. Some work shifts, and we have to work around that, but that's the level we're at, and we know what we're dealing with.
Yeah. How tough is that actually for yourself, obviously, because obviously you're playing professional football majority of your career in Ireland or Grimsby. How difficult is it to go back down to the level, like it's at level 9 now in the pyramid? Like, is it frustrating for you sometimes? Maybe a player can't be available because of work and certain circumstances. Like, or what's your own mindset when you're coaching now at this kind of level?
I think as long as you communicate with the lads, like they let you know early doors, like their shift patterns, or if they can't make it. Look, at the end of the day, it's like it's a hobby really at this level for a lot of players, for a bit of extra cash or just to keep playing with mates and whatever. As long as they communicate, you know what you're dealing with really, and you just have like it's an acceptance really.
In terms of yourself, then, to take it back, like your first club, would it have been Grimsby, or would you play for a local team before you signed for Grimsby?
Yeah, so I'd have played local team called Humberfirm. They were from like 5-year-old till 12, and then I signed for Grimsby at like 10-year-old. You could play for both for a couple of years, 9-10-year-old, and then when you got to like year 8 in school, so under 13s, you had to leave your local club to sign for Grimsby. So yeah, that's when I did that and moved away and from local football to play like academy football basically.
What was the academy structure like at Grimsby? Because there would have been League 1, League 2 team at the time. So what was it like part of that club that you'd say?
We were Championship, to be honest with you. We was floating between Championship, League 1. It was all right. Like, it's a lot better nowadays than what it ever was with us. Like, regarding just like facilities, kit, training, all sorts. Obviously, the game moves on, doesn't it? The game improves a lot over the years. But no, Grimsby would have been the biggest club round this area at the time, compared to the likes of Hull, Lincoln, Scunthorpe. Obviously, you go further afield to like the Yorkshire clubs, and it's a different level then. But no, it was obviously you always wanted to. I was a Grimsby fan growing up, really, and you always want to represent where you're from, and it was like that was your aim.
And was the majority of the academy just local lads like yourself in the Grimsby Academy?
Yeah, so at my age group, I think all of us, barring 2 or 3, were from Grimsby and Cleethorpes. Really, we had a couple from a bit further away, like Louth, Skegness, but they're only an hour away maximum. Boston as well, just over an hour. So it was all relatively local. You wouldn't. I think there was a rule in anyway. You weren't allowed to sign players further than like, I think it's like 90-minute travel away. I don't know if that's still the case now, but yeah, it was pretty much all local, really.
When did you start feeling maybe yourself that I have a chance here of making it?
Probably under 15s, I think it was. So like year 10 at school, second to last year at school. And before that, I was in and out of, like, I didn't really have a set position. I was always a defender, but I didn't really grow as much. And obviously over here at the time, everyone wanted centre half to be 6'4", battering rams. I definitely want that. So I sort of got moved around a bit, and then ended up front somehow, probably from me asking, to be honest. And they sort of said, go on then, give it a go. Because like I said, I didn't really have a set position. And it just seemed to click really then. And then obviously under 15s, playing every week, I was involved with like the 19s at the youth team level. And then I used to go in like the school holidays and train. And a couple of times I went over to train with the first team, talking like championship players and people like that. And obviously when you're 15, it's what you don't really appreciate it at the time, but you think, hang on a minute, have I got half a chance here? Because obviously the coaches like me and stuff. So yeah, just from them really, and then I just kicked on.
You remember your first team debut?
Yeah, away at Bristol Rovers, 3-0 down, 87 minutes. I just remember being stood on the sideline, chucking it down, like say 3-0 down, and you've got this little 17-year-old ginger-haired lad coming on in bright gold boots, and their fans giving me a bit. But it was one of them. Like my dad, like Bristol to us is a good 4.5, 5 hours away. I mean, my dad and my uncle and one of their mates went, and obviously to them to see me come on away, even though we got battered 3-0, it was like the greatest moment of my life at the time.
Yeah, that was kind of my question there. Like, what's it like to, obviously, as a Grimsby fan, growing up to make your debut, albeit the result is kind of relevant to the point that, like, your family there watching. What's that feel like?
Yeah, just sending shivers through me talking about it now, to be honest. It was class, like I say, through the years. My dad, my uncle, my granddad, when he was alive, took me everywhere, travelled all over to watch me. So then, obviously, at that point, coming on, even though we were 3-0 down, probably running around for the 3-4 minutes that was left with the biggest smile on my face, and you're losing. But it's just one of them. You've worked your whole life, like your football life, for that moment. So yeah, it was surreal. Really, it was class.
What was it like around the club at the time? Because I think there was made managerial sackings. You mentioned there they were a championship club. I think they were starting to slide down the leagues. So what was it like as a young player making your way in the game and this is all happening around you?
Yeah, so obviously when I was coming through the Centre of Excellence, the academy at the time, it was there was always Championship League One, but always higher level League One. Under 15s, there was Championship, and I agreed my YT then, so I agreed it early, but obviously couldn't sign it until I left school. And then by the time I started it, they dropped into League Two. So they went relegated and relegated again. So in a way, as bad as it was for the club, it's probably helped me a little bit, because if I'm going in as a kid, as a championship player, the competition's going to be a lot tougher. Whereas by the time they dropped to League Two, maybe not be able to attract the players they wanted to attract. So it gave not just myself, like other young lads, an opportunity. And there's a few of us at the time, and to be honest, we all, I think between us, we must have played a good couple of 100 games between us from that youth team.
The 05-06 season FA Cup run, does that what's that mean to you when you think of Grimsby beating Tottenham Hotspur?
Oh, in the Carling Cup, yeah. So we at the time we were just we were ball boys at the time, the youth team and stuff. But beating Spurs at Bundle Park, the atmosphere was like unbelievable. Just remember the John Paul Kalala, like 86th minute or something stupid, just spanking one in at the pontoon end, and like everyone just went crazy. It was unbelievable. That season, I think Grimsby were in the top 3 all year. Obviously, I travelled. I was on the bench a few times. I came on once. And then the last week of the season, I think we dropped out the automatic places into the playoffs, despite being pretty much there all year. And then the playoff final was in Cardiff against Cheltenham, and we lost 1-0. Manager left. Obviously, new manager comes in. It was crazy, really, at the time.
For yourself, then, when do you feel like you settled into the first team and became a first team regular?
Yeah, so that 05-06 was when I finished my YT and signed a 6-month pro. So that season, my first year pro, I wasn't really getting a game at the start under a different manager, Graham Rodger. And then it weren't going great for the club in general. It was like you see the hangover from obviously not getting promoted. Players left, quite like the best players left. They brought some decent lads in, good players, but until he got sacked, probably October in time. And then the new manager came in who'd already been manager twice when we got to Wembley twice and got promoted and won the auto windscreens when I was a kid. He come back in, and for some reason we were training, and he had me in the starting team for the FA Cup game on the Saturday, and it had been my first start. And he just took to me then, really, and I played from then. I signed a new like 4-year contract, and played me pretty much every week. And that season, and then the season after, was really when I had my best spell at Grimsby. Manager that trusts you, and obviously as a kid at the time, playing under him, who was a club legend, and you've been from there, it was like amazing. And yeah, he just gave me my chance. Like I'd have been 19, I think, when I was starting regularly up front on my own in the Football League. And it was like, but the lads we had around us as well were good lads that helped you along the way.
How tough is the League Two playing as a 19-year-old centre forward, kind of the focal point of the team? And I imagine you're playing as defenders, in particular at those levels, who are not the nicest players to play against. So, like, what's that like as a 19-year-old?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I remember, like, the first game was FA Cup game, and I hit the bar with an header, and it was like, if that goes in, I'm a legend. Obviously it was unlucky. We took him to a replay, and like Sean Dyche was against us the following week, and you've seen the size of Sean Dyche and what he's like on the sideline now, and it's like you're coming up against people like that who's obviously had a top career when I think he was at Watford, Birmingham, places like that, and that's what you're coming up against every week. But I think because I was like so buzzing to be involved, and you've got a spring in your step with it, it didn't really faze me at the time, and I wouldn't have been the player, I don't think, that like went into his shell if he got smashed. I'd go around kicking people twice my size and used to get called all sorts, but that was just the sort of player I was and how I played the game at the time. And I think that's what helped me, really. And like, obviously you have your teammates sticking up for you and that, and I say buzzed off it.
The 09-10 season, obviously it's a difficult kind of post-season for the club. They got relegated to non-league. We were chatting off air. There was a couple of issues that was broadcast many years later about kind of a drinking culture in the dressing room. Like, yeah. What was your thoughts on that season?
Shambles, absolute shambles. Some of the players we had were like top quality players. Like we had Nick Colgan in goal, Irish international. Barry Conlon, who'd had a good career in and around that level. We had Peter Sweeney, played in FA Cup final for Millwall against Man U. These were all top quality players, but something just didn't click. Obviously, we had Mike Newell as the manager, and there was just, I don't know, it was a bit of a mess, really. There's obviously a drinking culture at the club and stuff, and it just went from bad to worse, really. I left in end of January, so the end of that January, and then obviously it didn't improve, and they ended up getting relegated for the first time in their history.
What was Mike Newell like? Because he had a spell actually in Ireland very briefly as assistant coach.
Yeah, got sent off a couple of times, didn't he?
Yeah, I don't think he went particularly well. Like, what was Mike Newell like as a coach? He
wasn't a coach. He was a manager, and don't get me wrong, the career he had as a player, like when he come in, and you're thinking as a striker, you've got Mike Newell coming in. Taught a couple of things, but he was more of a manager. He had good spells at like Luton and Hartlepool, but I think both of them went tits up in the end, really. And his coach, Brian Steen, another England international, just not what you expected. You expected these people coming in big names in football, really. And it just wasn't anything what it should have been. I think the club knew they made a mistake with him, but at the end of the day, it didn't affect them. They move on, get jobs, whereas obviously the club get relegated, and only really now they've recovered from it. Don't get me wrong, we got back into the Football League 6 years after dropping out, and then we dropped down again for a year, sorry. And luckily, like, the chairman's changed and everything, everything's changed completely. It's a different mindset at the club now, but yeah, back then it was, as much as you love playing for your own town, it wasn't the best place to try and progress your career.
What changed that made it a shambles in your own mind?
When Alan Buckley left, we'd had a tough time, and I don't know. I think just the club from top to bottom weren't in a good place. I think if you Googled online about the old chairman, it's not for good reading. And then it just stems from that. Obviously, Mike Newell coming in, and it just wasn't. It's hard to say. Like, obviously, there's a drinking culture at the club, and lads would get in the car and go away, live an hour and a half away or whatever, and they can just disappear from that. But when you're living in Grimsby, you're from Grimsby, you see everything around it. And don't get me wrong, I didn't help myself at times as well in that season. I'd get involved with the drinking and stuff, but yeah, it was just it stems from obviously the top of the club, and if there's like a cancer, really, if it's ripping through your club, it's going to rip you apart, isn't it? It's going to kill it in the end. And that's what it was like.
For yourself then, like, how difficult was it to leave Grimsby?
Not difficult at all, because I was under Mike Newell. I wasn't playing as much as obviously I wanted to, rather than, like, not just me, like other young lads as well. Rather than giving you a chance, he'll just get someone in on loan on silly money. Like, I was never on great money at Grimsby, because you're coming through most clubs. Obviously, they don't look after the young lads as well as they should. Not everyone, but at the time they never. They're obviously a cheap option, but it was just frustrating when they go out and get a player on probably 3-4 times what you earn, and you're thinking, I'm better than him, I can offer more than him, it means more to me to play for the club. But yeah, it was just, I don't know, really. As much as obviously you gutted about leaving the club, it was probably the right time, to be honest. If you weren't playing, Mike Newell ended up getting sacked, and my old youth team manager came in, who obviously loved me as a youth team player and brought me through, and I was buzzing off it, but it still didn't quite work out. I could have gone out on loan to Bury, who were at the time, we was at the wrong end of the table. They were flying. I think Andy Bishop just left, who was their main man, and they wanted to bring me in for a month because the manager liked me. So I was like buzzing with this. And then I played in a reserve game, and I'd done well for Grimsby, and the manager went, "Nah, you're not going anywhere." I was like, right, okay. And then a month later, I get paid up. I had 6 months left on my contract. And just, it's one of them things. Obviously, you can look back, and don't get me wrong, I do sometimes I think, what might have been. But at the end of the day, everything happens for a reason,
When did the Irish interest come about?
Well, as soon as I left Grimsby, I got a call from a guy called Jerry Cassidy. I think he's like involved. He was involved at Blackburn. But he's over the northwest, so he got players over to Sligo and stuff. And I'd heard about it, and I was like, right, we'll have a chat. Nothing really happened. And then I went non-league. I went to Alfreton for a few months. Scunthorpe first, training, like they were in the Championship. And I just thought it's a great opportunity to train with Championship players. Obviously, the Grimsby's biggest rivals, but I thought, you've just released me, so you know what? Shove it, I'll go to you, and if it works out well there, I'll stick 2 fingers up here. That was my mindset. But then it didn't. Not that it didn't work out. It just wasn't really. I was getting on all right, but I was never going to play ahead of like Gary Hooper, Paul Hayes, like 2 top strikers. So then I left, and I just went Alfreton for a few months, and that's when really I sort of opened my eyes, thinking I need to book up my ideas up here if I want to make it in football. And that's when. There's Mark O'Brien. He was at Derby County scout, but he's a Pats fan, and he'd obviously seen me play for like Grimsby, like, I don't know, reserves or whatever, and then the Alfreton's derby anyway, pretty much. And just got in touch. He just got in touch with me, and that's how it came about. Really, I went over for a couple of days. Me and another lad went on a 2-day trial after the mid-season break had just finished. So you're straight back in doing all the running and stuff around Selbridge, and it obviously went really well. Pete Mann liked me and wanted to sign me.
Yeah. In terms of then, like, just obviously settling into Ireland, how did you find that? Was it difficult or was it seamless?
Yeah, no, it was tough at first. Obviously, I've always grew up at home, living at home, and you move away. Obviously, I was spoon-fed it by my gran and everyone at Grimsby. Like, it was great. You get looked after. Obviously, you step into the big wide world and you're living with a couple of lads, and if they're going home on weekends, you're on your own. And I was in and out at the start, and something happened, and I don't know if I went home for the weekend over something, and I came back and Pete wasn't happy with something, Pete Marr. And Phil Nolan, who was involved at the club, he obviously looked after me really well. I just said to him, I was like, just drop me back to the apartment. I'm going to pack my bags and go home. And he was like, no, you're not. I said, do you want to bet? I was like, and luckily I never. I had a chat with Pete, and obviously towards the end of the season, I played most games and scored a few goals. So obviously that got me loving it again, really.
What did you make of the League of Ireland when you first arrived?
Yeah, it was. I think my first game was Galway at home. I come on for Vinny. I was living with Vinny Farity at the time. I came on for the last 15, 20 minutes. If I won a pen or Doyle won a pen, someone won a pen anyway. So I wanted it, but the designated takes. I've been there 2 days, but no, I can't push myself in that quick. But no, I think within the first couple of games we played against Shamrock Rovers and things like that, and it was. I wouldn't say it surprised me because obviously I came over on trial and trained with a couple and trained with the lads, but it was. I didn't find it as obviously as physical as I did in England, but it was like a more not say more relaxed, but say it wasn't as physical. But no, I enjoyed it. I loved it coming over.
In terms of then the club itself, then like you mentioned Pete Matten there, what was he like as a manager?
I loved him. Don't get me wrong, I clashed with him at times. He's old school and. I'd always like give my opinion. If I thought something was wrong, I'd say it, not disrespectfully or anything. But if I didn't agree, I'd say it. And obviously we clashed at times, but I loved him. Obviously he got me over to Ireland, and he played me. And I like to think while I was under him, I'd done enough for him, scored a few goals for him, and I think he got messed around by Pats towards the end. No one knew what was going on, but no, he was great. Like I say, he was old school. Giller was in with him, but he had the respect of the players, and he's just a genuinely nice bloke, really was.
Do you think the 2011 season was kind of maybe your first year as a professional that you felt like you were the number 9 at a club and you were the focal point now in this team?
I had it at Grimsby. They gave me the number 9 shirt, and it was like a big thing at the time. And that season, I think I started it and then I was in and out of the team for a little bit, but then I had a good spell up towards near the end of the season. I got player of the month in the league and stuff. But then, yeah, the 2011 season at Pats, I was gutted the 2010 season finished because obviously I had a good run towards the end of the season. It's just obviously other lads were desperate for the break, but I'd only just been in a couple of months. So it's one of them. But I came back and obviously it was great, like me and Dill up front. It was just a class team to play in at Pats. I think we were still part time, obviously, and you had a few of the others at the top up there, like I think Fingal or whoever it was. Obviously Rovers, they were all full time, and we give it as good as we got. Like we may not have had the best players, but the group that we had would run through us for each other. I think if you looked at the team like what we had, it was brilliant. Really, I had Brad to like dictating everything. Dave Mulcahy in the middle. You could list them all, like you really could. It was just a really good dressing room. Bermo, Detzer, and Gaz Rogers in goal.
Yeah, it's a decent size name there.
Yeah, that's it. You look at it and where we finished in the end, obviously, was a bit disappointing. I think considering like the squad we had, but no, I say we may not have played the best football, but we'd all run through brick walls for each other. And I think on that day, it was a match for anyone.
Was the semi-final defeat to Shelbourne a disappointment that year?
Yeah, that was that. Yeah.
Yeah, was that like a moment you're like that's a game that got away? We could have got to that final.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. They went down to 10, didn't they? In the at Tolka. Did we go 1-0 up or did they go 1-0 up? I think
I'm trying to remember.
I know I scored. I can't remember.
Scores, yeah.
Yeah. But then we saw. I think we could have. I think we went 1-0 up, if I remember right. I think we could have kicked on, but I think we sat in. I think I ended up playing right midfield, and I'm not a right midfielder at the best of times. And I think they got back into it, and obviously they equalised, and the replay they beat us. I think 3-1. Sure, it's 3-1, and that was a massive chance missed because of obviously at the time Pats hadn't got to the cup final. I think it was like 50 years or 53 years or something. It was like a long time. I remember that, and you were reminded about it quite regular by like all the fans. So to be that close to getting there for the club and what it had meant, it was absolutely gutting, to be honest with you, and it absolutely killed it.
Going to Sligo then for the 2012 season, obviously Ian Barclough there as well, former Scunthorpe player. Like yourself personally, would you say it's a mixed season in terms of goal scoring wise? Was excellent in terms of the games you played. Then the injury came, so like what's your memories kind of that season?
Yeah, obviously Cookie had been on to me, and I signed quite early because at the end of the season for Pats, no one knew what was going on. The club hadn't spoke to Pete about staying, so he was obviously looking over his shoulder a bit. I think Liam Buckley knew he was coming in a couple of months before or whatever. So he's just said to us at the end of the season, look after yourselves. I'd just had a young girl at the time. So it was like, need to get myself sorted really. And Cookie was onto me. So we went back home for the Christmas period, and Sligo flew me over, took me around the town, showed me what it was about, and I literally agreed probably 3 weeks after the end of the season. And he's obviously got us in, and he's assembled an hell of a squad, like the players we put together. And then 2 weeks in, he does one to Accrington. I think it was Accrington, yeah. So it was up in arms. We had the assistant manager, Jerry, thought he was taking over. He'd be turning up in suits and whatever. I was only on about this at the weekend with like Quiggs, Jay, Pearsy, and everyone was over for Dave's testimonial. It was like when and Dave himself, like he was in on trial with us at the time, and like Jerry Carr was coming in. He was in suited and booted. He wasn't giving Dave minutes. He was rotating myself and Raf all the time. And you're thinking we're gearing up to hopefully challenge for the title, and it was just a bit of a mess. And then I think a week before the end of the season, Ian came in, and it was like, right, at least we've got a manager sorted. And we didn't have the best starts. We drew with Shells away. Quiggs got sent off, got a 6-game ban. Second game, Keno got sent off after 10 minutes against UCD. And at the time, you're down to 10 against UCD. You're not getting a kick of the ball like some of the players had, Paul Corey and people like that. And you're thinking, this is going to be a long season if this happens. There was talk of like discipline out the window and that. And it was like, couldn't be further from the truth. And then we sort of just got ourselves, we won that game 2-1. Big J scored in the last minute. And then we sort of just kicked on from there, really. And it was crazy. You'd be turning, obviously, you had Joey in the team who just ran the show, but you'd be turning up to games, and before you even step on the pitch that the other team, you feel like you're a goal ahead already. You looked at the 11 we had, the lads on the bench, and it was an unbelievable squad, really, and like definitely the best I played in.
Yeah, I bet that's kind of my next question. Like, how good was that team? Like, you look back now in hindsight, it's a fantastic side, really. And like, it showed they won the league, won the cup, and won the Stanley Cup as well. Yeah,
it got worse. It's not got worse. That's disrespectful, but like the squad we had in 2012 when we won the league, we didn't keep it together as long as we probably should have. Obviously, the Sligo had built up over the years and added bit by bit. And then obviously the culmination of all that hard work was in 2012 when they signed, obviously, Gary Rogers in goal. We signed, myself, Ross Gaynor came, Lee Lynch, Dave Corley. Like, we signed a good 5 or 6 players on top of what they already had. And it was like I say, it was an absolute joke. Training day in, day out. Like the keep ball we used to do. If you lost the ball, you weren't getting it back. To Quiggs. Obviously, Quiggs signed as well, sorry. Quiggs, Joey, Romy Bocco, like these players, like you couldn't get a kick or the ball off them. So yeah, like you say, you used to turn up to games. Teams already knew that they'd lost that was our mindset. We knew we were turning up, and we knew we were going to come into town and steamroll the teams, and we did more often than not. Don't get me wrong. First and foremost, you have to work hard, and we knew. But then you look at the team; we had grafters, we had a bit of everything, and we all put a shift in 100% for each other.
The injury then that happens, I suppose, like it's a common enough injury, ACLs, like, but a lot of people might not know or understand like the comeback from it. Like, you know, how difficult is it to come back from an ACL?
It was tough. I was out, I think, from when I did it to my first start or my first thing back was like 11 months. You have little setbacks here and there, and obviously I was in the physio all over Christmas, and it was tough because obviously we'd started so well in the league. I was flying, obviously scored a lot of goals, and then that happens. Obviously, luckily we carried on, and obviously Quigg stepped up and he ran the show. But coming up to around that time when like the league, when you look in the last few games for the league, and you sat there, and obviously you've got your knee brace on or your legs like jelly, and you're like, you want to be out there doing it. It was tough to watch at times, but then obviously in the end, it was like winning that league title. I knew I played a part, and that was the main thing. But yeah, the comeback from it was a long time coming. It was like, I think, nearly the mid-season break the following season, 2013. I come on away at Waterford in the FAI Cup for like the last 5 minutes. I was like, probably weren't quite ready, but it was just sort of to give me a bit of a carrot, you know. And I remember jumping from head of landing, and I felt something in my knee. I thought, oh no, please God. But luckily it never did anything. And then from then it was, even when I came back for the rest of that season, I was in and out of it a little bit, in and out of the team. Obviously Anthony Eldon had come in, he was scoring a lot of goals. So it was that was difficult in itself as well. Getting myself back to where I wanted to be was obviously tough, and yeah, it was a hard time.
I suppose the comeback does culminate in the 2013 FA Cup final. Like, you know, you come off the bench, make a huge impact in the game. You know, what's your memories of that game?
Yeah, we got told, the team, the day before. We trained in the morning at Sligo on the pitch, and we named the team, and spitting feathers, you know, because I'd worked myself back into the team, and you know, it was like the team pretty much picked itself, barring myself and Elds up front, and it was like we weren't really sure who. I should have had an inkling really, because the last 2 games of the season, I don't think we could have gone any higher or lower than third. So Ian's like changed the team around, give everyone a chance, and there was only 2 of us that didn't start in either game. One of them was me. The other one was a young lad called Marty Owens, who didn't really get much game time anyway. So I should have really known that. But then until he named the team, you always think, oh, I've got half a chance here. So when he'd named the team and we were doing shake, there was a couple of us, Dave, Corley, Lynchy, I think Seamus was on the bench, Seamus Keneally, and we were all, obviously, you're gutted. As much as you're involved in a cup final, that immediate impact of finding out that you're not starting. Everyone wants to start in cup finals in the big games. It was heartbreaking really. And like, to be fair to the lads, the older lads, Keane, I say the older lads are a couple of years older than me, but Keano, Pearsy, like me close, like good mates, and Danny V and that, they was all saying, look, don't worry, you'll come on, you'll play a part. And I'm like, no, I won't. I hate him, but you know that sort of thing. But then, so we went down on the night before, and I roomed with Dave Corley, and we literally just laid in bed, different beds, sweets, bottle of Coke, just watching some rubbish on the telly. Probably didn't say 3 words to each other, but because we were both obviously gutted. But then you wake up the next morning, you go down for your breakfast, your pre-match, and your mindset switches. Like you're over the disappointment, and then all you want to do is win. And like I said a few times before, I knew that I'd get on at some point. I'm not like, obviously as a striker, you're always going to come on really more than probably a centre half, you'd say, on the bench, depending on how the game's going. So I knew I was going to get on, and I'd have to try and make an impact. But as impacts go, it was like unbelievable, really. As much as you think you can do a bit, like for what happened, it was like surreal.
One of the best moments of your career?
Yeah, absolutely. I think as well, like I say, the injury for 11 months and struggling to get back to where I was for them 20 odd minutes, like everything just seemed to go right for me. And yeah, to win the cup final, that was sort of like, it was just like the icing on the cake for the comeback, really. Still annoyed Els didn't say it back to me when I chested it down to him, but it is what it is, isn't it? He's put it in the top corner.
I think it's one of them misses you give out to him.
Oh, I would. I'd have come after him, yeah.
Was it a difficult decision to leave Sligo after 3 years there? Like, what was the reason to go on the Shamrock Rovers?
Owen Heary. So basically, in the summer of 2014, when John Coleman was in charge, I was going all right, and Shamrock Rovers came in for me when they had Trevor Crowley and Giller, and the club were thinking about it. Then they said no, so I was like, right, I'm happy enough. Like, if you want me to stay, I'll happily stay, but can I have a new contract? I'm up at the end of the season. If I'm not going to get a deal there, can I have a new contract at Sligo? And I was like, yeah, we'll give you a longer deal, blah, blah, blah. I was like, brilliant. And then the more we played, didn't hear anything. So after a few more weeks, I've gone in and I've just said, look, what's going on? And John Coleman turns around and was like, need more from you. I went, what? So I need more from you. I was like, I'm your top scorer since you've come in. We're going all right. You promised me this. You stopped me from earning like a new contract at a different club when I've got a young family. And he was like, oh, well, I need ammunition to go to the board. I was like, right, okay. And then he left a couple of weeks later, and it just ended a bit. It was a shite ending, really, to be honest. We weren't going anywhere towards the end of the season, and then I think Owen Heary knew he was coming in. I'd seen lads signing new contracts. I'd not heard a thing. So I went into the club and I just asked what was going on, and I said, oh, it's the first we've heard about it. If you are going to get something, it'll be 1 year and it won't be on any sort of money. I was like, right, okay. So that sort of put it in my head. And then Owen here, he met us all, and he gave it the spiel of like, I want you, you're a goal scorer, blah, blah. I was like, yeah, great. But I've been told this and that. And he was like, no, you're fine. And then I went home with a family, moved home for a bit, and didn't really hear anything off him. And then Pat Fenlon got in touch, and I was like, right, I'll definitely listen to what you've got to say. So I've gone over to meet him, and from what he was saying, when you're a striker and you feel wanted, that's it. And I remember trying to ring Owen here, he didn't answer. Then he's tried to ring me back, and I just thought, you know what, okay. And then I flew over to Dublin to get it all signed. And to be fair, I rang him. I said, look, just to let you know, common courtesy, like I'm going to sign for Shamrock Rovers. And he just give it the odd, are you sure? Can we do anything to keep you? I was like, no. He said, right, all the best. So when I see lads signing new contracts, and like I was the top scorer 2 of the 3 years when I was there. Obviously we've won titles. It was definitely a sad end to what happened. And I think a lot of people thought it was me wanting just to move on, but when you don't feel wanted from what you feel like you've done for the club, it was a difficult one, especially with a young family who were settled there and stuff. It was tough, but like I say, at the end of the day, it's football. It happens, and you have to move on at times.
What was it like a part of that Shamrock Rovers dressing room at the time? Because I think the best way to describe it would be the transitional period for the club. They never really recovered after the Michael O'Neill era. So Stephen Kenny there, then obviously Pat Fenlon came in after Trevor Crawley. Like, what was it like as a player there at the time? It was good, it was really good. Like, you look around the dressing room and like we had Keith Fahey, Stephen McPhail, Duffer came in, and then you had the lads that had been around the league a long time, and it was an all right dressing room. Like, we had some good quality players and some good lads. Like I say, it was just a bit unfortunate at the time. Dundalk and Cork were like up here, and we couldn't quite get to that as hard as we tried. We had some good results and some good times, but unfortunately we just weren't where we needed to be, I guess. And like I say, the way Dundalk and that were going, that was the aim to get to, and we just weren't quite there. But Pat was great, to be honest. Pat was really good. At the end of the day, you just want honesty, and that's what he was. Like, he was honest, and he worked us hard. Himself, Glenn and Bradzer, like, they was all in, and Hendo. It was a good group, and like I say, we had some good results, but we just weren't quite where we needed to be. Were you surprised he was let go of his duties as manager, Pat Fenlon? I'll be honest with you, it was the last time I'd done my knee, and I wasn't really sure and what was going on. I was in and out the team a little bit, and I'd spoke to him about it, and you wouldn't about myself, and you wouldn't have got an inkling of him going or whatever. So I was surprised, yeah, definitely. Were you surprised even more for maybe when Stephen Bradley, a former team of yours,
It was a surprise. But obviously it's the right decision. Look how Rovers have kicked on now over the last few years, and it's good to see because, like I say, I played with Bradzer. I got on really well with Bradzer when I played, and even like I spoke to him a few times. Obviously, when they've won things, and just drop him a message and whatever. And but now it's really good how they've kicked on, and I think they're the pinnacle of what other clubs are trying to be in Irish football. Like you look at the facilities they've got at Roadstone now and everything, and the academy, and obviously the players that are coming and going, and it's nice. It's good to see. Like I say, he was a good bloke, and I enjoyed playing with him. I got on with him really well.
When you were playing with him, I know he's obviously maybe leadership probably one quality to have. He's always captain of the club where he was. Was it an obvious maybe candidate that he'd go into coaching and do as well as he can?
No, not to be honest with you. At Pats, he was obviously our captain when Kenna was injured and stuff, and he led with did his talking with the ball like he was quality. But we'd have a huddle before the game and stuff, and Pete and Giller would be telling us to turn it percentages, blah blah blah. We'd be in it, and it'd be like, we're getting the ball down and playing. Like we don't have to do it all the time. We've got good players. This is Bradzer. We've got good players. Don't have to be that all the time. We get on the ball and we play and we pass around teams as well. And we did, to be fair. So yeah, I wouldn't have expected him to go in. I know he did scouting and whatever, didn't he, for Arsenal and stuff. But yeah, he's done his badges and whatever, and he's kicked on. And I think it helps that you have good people around you as well. And obviously Stephen McPhail, Glenn Cronin have obviously helped him along the way as well.
For yourself then, looking ahead, obviously you start your coaching careers. Is it something that you're more interested in the future, being a first team coach? Is a possibility, maybe looking into Ireland, come back to Ireland, looking at coaching, or where do you see yourself?
To be honest with you, I definitely want to progress with the coaching or wherever that will be. At the minute it's just a part-time gig, and obviously I'm going to have to do more badges and whatever. But it's something that's in my mind a bit more now than it ever was, and it seems to be creeping in more and more. So look, we'll see what happens. I've got a little taste for it now, and I enjoy it. But yeah, could be Ireland, could be England. It all depends really on the opportunities that arise. Really, it's obviously Ireland's a small, like it's a closed group really. I think you need to know someone that's getting a job to help in. So I'll just wait for Pearsy or someone to get a job, and I'll beg him to take me over.
When you look back now, and I thought I've asked the question a few times, and that's usually my last one I usually ask. If you're to pick a five-a-side team the players you played with, who would be in it?
Right. Jesus. Gary Rogers in goal. I'd have Pearsy, Joey, Quiggs. Can I name myself?
It's up to you.
And McPhail. Put Quiggs
inside that.
higher up. Put Quiggs higher up. Joey and McPhail. Pearsy at the back. Guy Rogers in goal. And I'll be super sub.
That's a decent team.
Not bad. That's off the top of my head. I'm sure I've missed one or two that won't be happy, but
I'm sure they're not listening. It's fine. Danny, you've been great your time. Thanks for coming on. We'll chat again soon.
Yeah, nice one, mate. Appreciate it. Cheers.
Get in touch. You can email us at extratimelive@gmail.com or tag us on Instagram using the hashtag League of Ireland or tweet us at Extra Time News.
Let's do it.
Welcome back to the third half. Macdara, what we start? Will we start with European football, or will we start with the FAI Cup? So I was away now for, as we know, for a bit of this. I might European football knowledge what happened. All I know is read the results. I don't really know the forms, but reading the reports and looking at Twitter, social media, I think it's fair to say that it was a bit of a damn squid, the European football this year.
Yeah, it was disappointing. No, let's just if you look at the results, and we were going to use the UEFA coefficient, but that's based on the draws and wins that you have. It was the worst set of results since 2019, where it was the exact same that picked up. But actually, our overall coefficient goes up. It's based on 5 years of results, and we're losing the 2018 results, which were really shit. So we actually go up, and it does appear that the winner of the FAI Cup will actually not go into the Europa Conference League first round qualifying and would go into second qualifying round. So that would guarantee them €450,000, which is, compared to Pats went in the first round and lost, and they only get 250k. So that's based on if the cup winners don't actually win the league. So if Pats go and do the double, then that's an academic point, because Pats will be playing Champions League football. But the fact that one team went out in the first round, two teams went out in the second round. Dundalk, Shamrock Rovers, played 4 games, lost all 4. And then Derry got to the third round and really should have won, and should have got to the playoff round. But I think Tobal, I think I'm right in saying they're the only team who entered the first qualifying round of the Europa Conference League and made it all to the playoff round. So it backed up what we were saying at the start. Certainly my opinion is, if you go into the first qualifying round of the Europa Conference League, you just can't qualify for the group stages. You got to play 8 weeks in a row. You got to win 4 ties to get through. But Derry gave themselves a good chance, and that miss by King Kavanagh, cost them 300 grand. So they got 850k. They would have got 1.15 million and would have had a chance against Pilsen of possibly getting to the group stages. But they fell at that hurdle. But really, you'd be hoping, in a good season, all the teams maybe might get through the first round. You'd certainly be looking to get at least 2 into the third qualifying round and maybe 1 into the playoff round. And so I'll throw the coefficient at you. This year we get 1.5. Last year it was 3.375. So that includes Shamrock Rovers picking up points in the group stages. A reminder when everyone says Rovers had a failure in Europe last year. 2021, 2.875. 2020, 1.875, and 2019, 1.5. And you go back to 2018, it was only 1. So yeah, overall you have to say it's disappointing. But Derry gave themselves a really, really good shot. It was interesting. I paid the £25 sterling, the €30 to go to the game. I was talking about ticket prices during the week. I balked at paying €120 to go to a literal rugby friendly at the weekend. That was the cheapest ticket to go and watch Ireland, England. But anyway, I paid €30 to go to Tala on Thursday, and there were very few neutrals there, but it was a great Derry crowd at over 3,200. So there was a few faces I recognised. There was 3 Shamrock Rovers players who came in late enough, and they were kind of looking for. They ended up standing at the back, and it was interesting. They were there to watch Derry City, and they were kind of critiquing Derry City, and it was just interesting that they had come along to watch the game. But there were very few neutrals went, and actually it was a really good occasion to go to. There was really good atmosphere and really good performance by Derry. And I was chatting to Andrew Dempsey, who was there for extra time, and he was at the post-match press conference, and he said Rory Higgins was so low afterwards because he obviously, they were, you get to penalty shootout, and then I can only imagine then they went and lost their penalty shootout in the cup on Sunday as well. But yeah, I think kind of just to wrap up the European stuff, I think the only way you can say it is it's a disappointing. I think Derry did well, and then everyone else, Dundalk got through what they should have done. And for Shamrock Rovers, the thing was, like I'm adamant, Bridebleck are a good side and played well, but if Rovers play to how they can play, and at times this season they have played well, but for too much this season they haven't played well. But if Rovers can play at a level that they can play, they should have won that first round. And I was talking to one of the Rovers players for the program this week, and that's what he had said. He said that probably we showed them too much respect. Probably the wrong term, but we didn't press them high enough, particularly in the home game, and that meant they were behind the 8 ball when they went to play the second leg away from home. And then they had got a pretty good draw by getting the team from the preliminary qualifying round, and then they ended up getting the hardest draw possible because Ferris were by far the highest ranked team that were in that second round, but they didn't play particularly well in either leg, and they were. It could have been a real hammering away from home. And, they started the game well, but as soon as they went the goal down, they weren't at the races at all. And then they were, they did okay in the home leg, losing 2-0, but to lose 6-0, it's a pretty bad result. But against a team you wouldn't normally be facing in that round. But that's their own fault because they didn't win against Breidablik.
Yeah, and I suppose I was at the game, the first leg, watching it for extra time, was covering the game, and I thought we haven't recorded since actually that game, have we? I don't think. But anyway, watching that game, I know Breidablik, they done well in the two legs, but I think Rovers themselves will have to look back at that game and see it as a missed opportunity, considering I think the next leg I was following Breidablik's results and they lost, I think 8-2. I think on aggregate.
It was Copenhagen. I don't think Rovers would have done much better.
No, I suppose not. But my main point was that I think if we were having this conversation December last year with Shamrock Rovers, we would be saying to ourselves, get you the first round Champions League, have a go then the next round, knocked out, that's fine, go into the Europa League and then go into the Conference League. And we were all assuming that was going to be the pathway again this year. And the playoff round is looking to draw whether they can get a decent team. They could be unfortunate to get a tough side in the playoff round, the Conference League. But I just think that from looking at it now, I think it was a good point I heard. I can't remember to give the credit to who, but they made the point that essentially that Shamrock Rovers team now is at a crossroads, I think. And again, I don't know we're going off topic, but I think they do need to now look at that team and possibly, I think it's transitional period could be done, maybe the refreshing the sides. And I think I looked at midfield against Breidablik and players just weren't competing at the levels that maybe they were used to or we've seen them before. And I think maybe a refresh could be needed in that side. I don't want to harbour too much on Shamrock Rovers, but I'll let you come back in. Just that's my own thoughts on them.
Yeah, crucially they missed Jack Byrne, Neil Ferrugia, Trevor Clark, and Liam Burt has come in. Burt has come back finally from injury, and he made his first start outside of the Leinster Senior League. Was actually in the European game. That was his first start for Rovers. He hadn't even played a league game, and he has been good in the games he's played since then. I think you took out those three players, and it took away their creativity and it took away their speed, particularly down the flanks. And Ronan Finn is a different type of player. Sean Cavan is a different type of player, and you can bring one of them in and maybe have your quick winger on the other side. And we'll be talking about the league next week. But if Rovers are to win the league, they're kind of relying on those players to come back in. But the aim is for whoever the champions is, if you can be seeded in that first round draw, you give yourself a good chance. And you can get a tough draw, and Rovers didn't. They got a good draw, but they didn't. I'm adamant that Breidablik are a very good team, but Rovers didn't make the best of the draw that they did get, and then there was no way they were going any further. So I think, we've spoken about the age profile of that squad, and then one of the younger players that just sold today. We're recording on Tuesday, and Justin Ferris has been transferred over to Frosinone, I think how they pronounced it. Anyway, it's team just outside Rome, who were just recently promoted to Serie A, and because he was given the cold shoulder basically this year. But he'd be the type of player that Rovers are trying to bring through the academy into the first team. And there's been a few players like Sakona Noonan who they're hopeful that might do that, and they need to be bringing in younger and fresher players.
Yeah. And I suppose the news broke today as well. Adam Murphy looks like he's on his way to Bristol City too. He's leaving Pat. So again, it's kind of that issue we have at the moment where it's great that in one aspect we're keeping all the young players in the league to a certain age, but we have a really lack of players between the age of 20 and 25 in this league. I think personally, that's a huge problem.
Yeah, it is. But it's great to see these young players in the teams. That's it is. But I think that's what's going to kill us in European competition. That we're going to have players who are fantastically talented, like the likes of Sam Kerr, who I've been raving on with this season. But he's on a go. He's 18. He's gone.
But I think the players we're going to be missing is the likes of the 20 to 25-year-olds who we need in the teams to have a bit more experience and they're coming into their prime. And I think that's what Irish teams are going to lack now in European competitions is those type of players, and it's hard to keep them. Like I'm sure Rovers were looking at players to bring in, and most of them are going to England at 8 and 19. So it is an issue. And it's part of their talking point.
I think that those two players that have moved this week, the point was made. I think Dan McDonald was making the point. Both of those players, I think, were out of contract at the end of the year, and if they had moved, both Pats and Rovers would have got a sizable enough compensation, depending on what level they were going at. But you couldn't insert a sell-on clause, so in both instances, and that was Pats had to kind of weigh that up, particularly with Murphy, because he's been, he's in the team, and Pats are going to try and win the league. But if they held on to him, and he went at the end of the year, they couldn't insert they get paid decent training compensation, but there's no opportunity to put in a sell-on clause. So you're kind of weighing that up. But I think ultimately Adam Murphy kind of made the decision, that he wanted to go, because I think it does seem like he'll get first team appearances, and so we'll wish him well.
Yeah, and he's to be fair to lad, he had a bad injury last year with his hamstring. He came back this year and he's done really well. So again, it's a real loss for the club, and he played his last game there on Sunday afternoon against Derry, which will lead us nicely into the FAI Cup. I suppose we touched on it there, like that was a bad week for Derry City, losing on penalties in the European competition, and then being compounded with the fact of losing on penalties again in the FAI Cup, which essentially means, unless they have a fantastic start end of the season and Rovers and Pats all collapse, it's going to be a trophy this season with Derry.
I wouldn't be dismissing their league campaign just yet.
I don't know. I don't think they win the league personally, but
I don't think they will. But they have a game in hand, which I believe is a game against UCD, so that would bring them slightly in, and it is the only thing they're playing for, similar to Shamrock Rovers. And then they don't have any rearranged games. Actually, the duo are due to play the weekend of the Cup, and Rovers are obviously knocked out by Dundalk in the last round. But if Derry had gone through, then that league fixture would have had to be rearranged, but it won't be, so that'll go ahead. So the other teams, the fixtures were announced today, have had to move league fixtures. So Bows have to move a league fixture, Pats have to move a league fixture, Dundalk have to move a league fixture, and they're going to have to. They're slotted in now on Monday nights. Certainly the Bows game is, and I think they're playing Shells. That's now going to be a Monday night. The Pats game, I think they're home to Drogheda. That's going to be a Monday night game. So for both Derry and Shamrock Rovers, all it is about the league, and it is about momentum. And the difficulty is Derry are going to have to pick themselves up, and the fact that they were cup holders as well, I think that adds to the disappointment. The fact that they'd won the competition last year. And will I run through the cup draw just in case people haven't seen it?
Yeah, and I have it in front of me here, so I can skip through it. It's Drogheda Bows, Finn Harps, Pats, Galway United, Dundalk, and Cork City Wexford. Probably the standout tie. Drogheda Bows is probably the big one there, I'd imagine. Bows,
I think the standout thing is that Bows, Pats, and Dundalk avoided one another.
Avoid each other,
and that's probably it. But I've seen Drogheda play a number of times this year, and I was at the last Bohemians Drogheda league game in Dalymount, and it was an excellent, really, really good game. I thought Drogheda were probably a bit unlucky to not to get something from that game. I thought they played really well. The really interesting thing is that Bows haven't won away in the league since April. They didn't win at the week. It was a couple of weekends. They haven't won away from home since April, which is incredible. So, in the league, so they have to travel up to Drogheda for that one. It is the tie of the round, because it's two Premier Division teams. I was at UCD Galway United on Friday. I was at UCD Galway United on Monday, and Galway were excellent. Particularly Ronan Manning was really good. He got a goal and 3 assists. David Hurley was excellent as well. The note, they were 4-0 up, and Ollie Horgan got a red card. The Galway system.
Yeah, what happened there?
Verbals. It was always first. But he actually got a better view, because he got to he got to climb up the. He was up in the TV gantry and he got a better view. But so that'll that's not an easy game for Dundalk at all. But when I saw the draw, I was like, no, that's a good quarterfinal draw, because whatever happens, I think.
Yeah, I'm interested in that game for the simple reason is the Galway going to be promoted. That's a given at this stage. So it's interesting that they can test themselves against Dundalk. That where they stand, Galway. Like, sometimes you've seen teams come up and they walk the first division, and then suddenly then they can't bridge that gap in the Premier Division. And I think it is growing still, that gap between the lower end of the Premier Division and the top end of the first division. I think it is growing. You can see this year with Cork really struggling. I think when I was away, I was reading that Cork were trying to poach Kevin Doherty to come down to them. So, bit of shenanigans probably going on there as well. But it's an interesting time for Galway. And on Dundalk, I suppose we never even touched on it because I haven't been recording. There's Darrell Horgan came back to the league, which is a huge boost as well.
Yeah, that's really good for them towards the end of the season. And the cup will be a target. They won it in 2020 in an MTV Stadium. They won it in 2018. Won it in 2015 as well. So yeah, it'll be Galway were by far the better team than UCD on both nights as well. So it wasn't really much of a test when they were playing UCD in the cup. But the fact that they will host Dundalk and Darrell Horgan, Galway man as well. I have that right, yeah?
He's a Galway man, yeah.
Yeah, so, but it's a great acquisition. It's great for Dundalk. I think it's good for the league as well, because he's a player that seemingly he did have offers to maybe stay in the UK. I think his wife's from Dundalk, and the chance to come back. And I think they're probably Dundalk travelled to Tala on Friday, so maybe I shouldn't say that Dundalk are out of the league just yet, but they're a little bit behind. I think you're looking at Pats and Derry. Bows are going to need to win some away matches if they're going to win the league.
Do you know what though? On what I harping back, but it does show the importance of the European football. Like Dundalk getting through those rounds. I would say we spoke to James Ross in the show earlier on the year, and there was talking about the financial issues there, and the money maybe isn't there as flush as it was in previous years. And getting through those rounds in Europe, it probably did afford Darrell Horgan's wage for the year.
They got €550,000 for getting to Europe. The other thing is, it's probably their attendances aren't as good as elsewhere, and they've dropped across the season. So even they got one extra European game, because from the Shamrock Rovers point of view, they had a pretty small crowd at the last European game for Rovers. It was only 3,700, and so the fact that you miss out on the prize money, but actually you miss out on a bumper gate as well. But just getting through that extra round, got Dundalk an extra gate, but they got them to bring them up to €550,000. So and money is an issue at all clubs, but they are, by all accounts, Dundalk are looking for additional investment.
Yeah. I suppose final point on the cup before we wrap up. Any clear favourite at the moment? I think it's probably, you can take your pick team, Pats, Dundalk, Bows, obviously that's probably the 3-horse race that people with the majority go at the moment.
Yeah, I'd probably, if I'm looking at what the quarterfinal draw is, Pats are playing First Division Finn Harps, and it is away from home, but Harps, they're not that. I think there's certainly an opportunity. They're very much, that Harp squad, as you understand it, is very much a kind of a Donegal squad. They don't have players going up and down from Dublin like they would have before. So I don't think they have maybe the depth or the quality that they might have had in other seasons. So I think probably Pats are more likely to go through it. I think Bows will win in Drogheda, but Drogheda on the day certainly can win that tie. But I reckon Pats should be good enough to beat Harps, and then Galway potentially could win against Dundalk. Yeah, and I'm kind of writing off Cork City and Wexford who won in Irish Town Stadium, so they were playing St. Pat's CY, and they played in Irish Town Stadium on Sunday. So I heard the pitch wasn't very good, but Wexford did enough to get through.
Yeah. I think we'll leave it there. We'll go through the fixtures this week in the SSE Electricity. Start with the Premier Division, of course, and the games on Friday night are as follows. UCD versus St. Pat's Celtic, Shamrock Rovers, Dundalk, and that game's live on RTE, Macdara, I think?
I think it is, yeah.
It is live, I think.
Just to say, there will be some games on Virgin Media. I think by the time the podcast comes out, there might be some information on future games on Virgin as well.
Fantastic. Even better news than the podcast on. Bowls against Derry City, Drogheda United Cork City, and Sligo Rovers Shelbourne. In the first division, we have Treaty Kerry, Galway United Cove Ramblers, Athlone Wexford, Bray Waterford, and Finn Harps Longford on Friday. And finally, we have the FAI Women's Cup first round on Saturday and Sunday. The fixtures are as follows: Terrier Rangers against Cork City, Treaty United Peamount, DLR Waves Wexford, Shamrock Rovers Clester Donacarney, Athlone Town Galway, Cabinteely Bows, and Sligo Rovers against Bonaghy United. Are you at any game this weekend, Macdara? I'm going to assume the Shamrock Rovers game.
Yeah, I'm going to Tala on Friday night.
I'm actually not getting to a game this weekend, unfortunately. The LSL is back, so I'm actually at LSL duty on Friday. I'm in Lusk, which will be under lights as well. So it will be at Friday night football, but it will be in the junior section of football. Saturday Division 3A, Leinster League. So that'll be well, I'm actually only money watching that game, spectating, but always a fantastic spectacle to watch. Hey, we'll leave it there. Macdara, good chatting to you again after a month hiatus.
Yeah, we'll get back into the regular pods. No, enjoyed it.
We did. And actually, we should give a shout out as well to Donald, did a great job as the temporary host and doing himself and Eva did the World Cup specials, which again, was great to listen to when I was across the water. So well done to that two guys. Anyway, we'll leave it there and we'll chat to you all next week.